Everybody, this is Perch, and there's a lot. You can't turn on kind of TV news for any length of time, and there's not they're not running some story about cancel culture. What's weird is that people tend to kind of pass the baton of complaining about cancel culture between networks. Like the right wing will complain about cancel culture because of one of their side, and then the other side's like, what are you even talking about? It's consequence culture, and then somebody on their side will get canceled or get an outrage, and then suddenly they're worried about cancel culture, and the other side's like, I don't know what I don't know what you're talking about. It feels like this is just going to go on forever until the ratings go down, and then nobody cares about this anymore. But it leads into a question I got, which is, hey, Perch, cancel culture is bad. I agree. But what are the cases where a comic book creator, somebody who works in comics, should be canceled, where the person really should be blacklisted, not allowed to work again? What are things that you would say should lead to that kind of outcome? I think that, to me, I think there's a couple really obvious answers, like really super obvious answers. And then it becomes a your mileage may vary kind of thing. But the super easy answers, unfortunately, there's a couple of examples of this. Committing a crime where you go to jail is probably a pretty good one. That's an easy one where the company should stop working with you. And I think I did a video on this a long time ago, but there was a artist named Greg Brooks some time ago, back in the '80s, and he did a few comics. I know he was working on Crimson Avenger, and basically he killed his wife and with a hammer, and it was a gruesome, ugly, awful thing. And then he went to jail. He was convicted correctly of murder. It was clear he did it, and he went to jail. What was funny about that whole story is that while in jail, he reached out to DC saying, I can do some work from in here, and as the story goes, DC was like, well, maybe. Like, they didn't immediately turn that one down, which is kind of mind blowing if you think about it. But it was turned down in the end. But I think that's an example. If you are convicted of murder, if you kill your wife, or husband, but if you're killing somebody, I think that's a good reason for you not to be in the industry. I think if you are, you embezzle a bunch of money. I think if you commit a crime, certainly if you are convicted of rape or a kind of a brutal kind of crime like that, then yeah, I think you should be run out of the industry. I think you should be blacklisted. I absolutely do think that. Now, there's an argument, if we're splitting hairs here, of well, what about somebody who commits a crime and then they go to jail and they serve their time and they get out? Should they be then allowed to work in comics? And I mean, to me, I think the rules are the same of any company hiring a felon. I think if you go and you serve your time and you get then out of jail, I think you should be eligible for getting more work, because that is what is true for all other professions. I don't think comic books are any different from any of those things. If you're going to have to convince somebody to hire you with your record, but I do think that that you're at least eligible for it, certainly. Unfortunately, I mean, murder is, that's Greg Brooks is not the only case. There is also the probably more famous case, because there's been some other media that's gone off of it. Blake Leibel is another one who was a guy. God, when did he 2000? Oh, this was 2016. I thought it was like in the last 5 years. Basically. Tortured and again killed his fiance, who and he was a comic creator as well. He was a I think a fledgling comic creator, graphic novelist. Had done a bunch of work, but that was just a gruesome kind of torture plus murder situation, and he's in jail now. That's a case where I don't think there's any reason why that people should be giving that guy work. I think once you get into prison, that's pretty much you probably should be run out of the industry. I mean, and again, there will be somebody who's like, well, what about somebody who goes into prison and while they're doing in their spare time, they're writing. I mean, people write books from prison. I mean, that's true. I do think it's reasonable for publishers not to print books and make money off people who are in prison. I think that's just decency. But that's my line. I said your mileage may vary at the beginning of this. But generally, when we talk about kind of canceling people in comics or people who are run out of comics, it's less about something they do and it's more about something they believe. And in this case, I think that, to me, I think that my personal preference, if you get the work done, if you are a team player, meaning you work with your team, you are responsible, you meet schedules, you meet deadlines, and you get that stuff done, then I think basically being blacklisted, being rejected for a belief is wrong. Now, the nuance here is that you do have to work as a team. And if you're going to be obnoxious for what you believe and you're going to make it difficult for your team to work together, then I think you're not going to be part of that team. I think this is different from blacklisting. I think this is just not getting hired for a job. And I'll give you an example of that. Let's say you are extremely pro-life. Okay, you're anti-abortion. You're very pro-life, very religious in that regard. And let's say that when I think that's fine. Let's say that when you get into team planning or whatever, your editor calls you up or they arrange a call with you and the artist or whatever else, or maybe you're the writer and you're sending scripts off. And you send the script of your story off and you include with the script a bunch of kind of anti-abortion literature and you start to kind of mock the other people on your team, the artist, the writer. Maybe you learn that the artist on this book that you're doing is very pro-choice, and so you start being very passive aggressive, and you make kind of little nasty comments during calls, and that you just make a nuisance of yourself. In that regard, I think you're going to get fired from that team. Nobody's going to want to work with you. But it should be, and again, this is my perspective, and I'm using the word should carefully. It should be that what's getting you booted off that team is not your belief. It's the fact that you're being an obnoxious asshole about it. Because I think it goes the other way as well. Let's say you're very pro-choice and that you learn that somebody on your team is very religious and pro-life. And you make a bunch of kind of that person's a Neanderthal, this person. I mean, you just make a bunch of obnoxious comments and you make yourself a pain in the ass. I think same thing goes. I think you should be removed from that team. I think the key there is not, again, what you believe. It's the actions you're taking. You're taking actions that's making it hard for your team to work with you. You're taking actions that, again, make you a pain in the ass. And that's the stuff that should get you, not invited back to do more books. I don't necessarily think this is a blacklist situation. I don't think it is a blacklist situation. I think blacklists should be reserved for people who take actions that are harmful to the company or to the comic or to the team. Things like felonies. I think beliefs. It's really, you should be able to hold whatever beliefs you have, and as long as you're not being a dick about it, I think that should be fair game. There's an old phrase. If you go to workplaces, you probably have heard this. It's you don't have to get along, but you do have to work with each other. And work with each other means you're able to take who you voted for, what your religious beliefs are, what your feelings on Israel versus Palestine, all this kind of stuff. And you should be able to not inject that into a workplace setting. Here's the rub. And this is one that, everybody's got to really kind of unpack and struggle with on your own. If you're on social media and you are a very pro-Palestine or pro-Israel, okay? And you're tweeting about how, screw Israel or screw Palestine, depending on your point of view, and you're very, adamant about that. You're posting this on social media. Anyone who follows you can see this. It's a very public post. However, when you go into the office, so to speak, when you get on calls with your peers, when you do comics, you don't mention a single word of it. You don't slide it in on a call. You don't post things in your email. You don't have like a little tagline in your signature on your email that says, screw Israel or any of that kind of stuff. You keep these worlds very, very separate. Your social media world, you're talking away, but your workplace talk, you're not. This gets to be tricky, and this is part of the debate that a lot of people have, because the argument is customers are seeing your social media feed because somebody in the comic book published your Twitter handle, for example, or maybe you're just a well-known creator, and you get verified, and so you're this kind of arguable personality that the company is leveraging. And so is your Twitter feed, is your social media feed separate anymore? My observation is this. A lot of people are very hypocritical about this. They don't want to see tweets and social media comments from people, politics, whatever it happens to be, for things they dislike. But they want to be protected for people they do, or for politics they do. So, for example, if you are a Democrat, then you say, this person should have the right to post stuff about Biden and Democrats, be very pro-Democrat on their social media feed. They have the right to do that. That's their time. However, when a creator posts something that is right-wing or Republican on their feed, they say, well, these views are important. These views are important. They shouldn't be working in the business. And that hypocrisy tends to spiral both directions all the time. People tend to, they're very tolerant. In fact, it's freedom of speech when it's something they agree with. And when it's the opposite perspective, it is, this is bad, this should be restricted, this should not be said. Suddenly it needs to be policed. And I'm seeing some of that go on right now. I did the interview with Bill Willingham. Bill Willingham holds, a perspective, a belief on the Israel-Palestinian conflict. He's posted. In fairness, he posts very irregularly about it. It's not often, and he posts, his support of one side, and then people who are supporting the other side are making comments like, "This guy shouldn't get work. This is absurd that this guy gets." That gets a comic, that this is gross that a company would hire somebody who holds these beliefs, right? But at the same time, these same people will very rapidly say, you can't police my social media feed, I should be able to say what I want to say, etc. So even though nobody is saying it out loud, and I wish they would, what they really mean is, as long as you hold the beliefs I hold, you should be able to work. And if you don't hold the beliefs I hold, then you should not. And nobody says it that way because you sound like a maniac when you say it that way, but that is the behavior a lot of people do. So to the whole, should people be canceled over things? Again, my view, and I'm curious to hear yours, so put it in the comments below. My view is, if you're taking actions on some of your beliefs, actions that are harmful or detrimental to others, be it, again, a felony, like Greg Brooks, or if you're creating a workplace environment that is hostile because you're not allowing, you are pushing your views, your thoughts on other people so aggressively that it's interfering with the work, those are reasons that that you shouldn't be working. That's my point of view. If you believe something, but it doesn't impact, it doesn't collide with the work, then there's no reason to run you out. A lot of people do the but what ifs. And one of the ones I've heard is, yeah, but what if somebody's expressing a view like it's okay to rape people? But they're not actually doing any raping, but they say this on social media. And to that, I would say, I think we can look at this on a case-by-case basis. I don't think anybody says that. So let's actually debate what people actually say, not these crazy kind of hypotheticals that are gross and weird. Let's just actually go with what is actually said, and we can handle it there. But most thoughts and opinions are, if they're kept quiet, if they're kept to themselves, people can tolerate it. We've been able to tolerate this for, in many cases, hundreds of years. There's obviously difference of opinion, but if you have an opinion about something And everyone, including you, including the person listening to this, everyone has some crazy idea in their head about something, because that's just how people are. But if you're able to keep those ideas to yourself, or at least talk about them in a way that's not going to make other people feel uncomfortable and threaten them. And I realize that statement has a lot of nuance to it, a lot of gray area. But I honestly, I don't think it's that difficult, because here's the thing: for many years in the workplace, there was this unspoken rule, and sometimes it actually was a rule, that you don't come into a meeting. You're working for an insurance company, and then you have a staff meeting of like 30 people, and you don't walk into that meeting and say, "Hey, everybody, I've embraced Jesus Christ, and those of you who are pro-choice are going to hell." Like, you wouldn't do that, and if you did, HR would talk to you, and you might get fired for doing that. So people have been able to live under that guideline for a long time, and it's worked out okay. It's been okay. It's only more recently that we've gotten into this period of, the ideas you think are a problem. That's the goofy part of kind of where we are. So there you go. There's my answer. I don't think there should be much cancellation of people. I don't think there should be much blacklisting of people in comics. I think when you do it, I think it should be for a very clear reason, like murder. And I think that you should try not to be an asshole at work. There you go. It's as simple as that. Magic. Okay, there you have it. What do you think? You may have a completely different opinion. Please, 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 if you're doing the commenting on it, please do me and you a favor by not please don't fall into the same old the problem is this one side, the side I disagree with, that side's the asshole who does all the problems. Because look, be honest, let's be honest with each other. Every single day you can find somebody on one side or the other trying to boot the other person out. That is not a both side. Well, it's not a, oh, I'm sitting on the fence. I'm saying this behavior is wrong. I don't give a shit who's doing it, right or left. I don't care. And if we want to debate, if one side's doing it 49% of the time, the other side's doing it 51% of the time, knock yourselves out. Not being just, it's not that hard. Come on. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening.